Today we travel from Denver, Colorado, where I just interviewed gallerist Nikki Todd, to Chelsea, New York, known for its world-class contemporary art, to interview Marina Hadley of MonkDogz Urban Art.
That we've tried to pull it off Google because we've closed down. I used to own a gallery in Chelsea on 27th Street, but we closed the gallery in 2016. No, it must have been 2017. We closed the gallery down, and we've been. I keep telling Google that we're not there anymore, but the problem is they want you to be somewhere else.
I found out about you because of Massimo D'Amico.
Yeah.
Do you remember him?
Yeah, I do. Really charming. I think it was 2006 that he was in one of our group shows. Really great technical painter. Lovely use of color. He's, technically proficient, but abstract. There's so many artists now who do start with abstract, but he has that really great technical foundation from which he can do anything.
Yeah. Wikipedia took me from him to you guys, and that's how I found you. You're on Wikipedia. So when you closed down the gallery in 2017, then you converted it to MZ Urban Art?
No, MonkDogz was how we first started. Bob Hogge and I, and actually that's a painting of his behind me. Bob Hogge and I started MonkDogz back in 2002, and we started the first social network for artists. This is like way before Facebook and Instagram and all of that.
At MySpace, I think hadn't even been.
I think it had just been, maybe just, because I know his daughter was telling us all about MySpace. No, you have to be on MySpace, so I remember that. But we created this site where an artist could send one image, an artist statement, and if they had a website, and very few artists did in those days, we would put a link to their website or to their email. We had something like 3,000 artists on this network, monkdogz.net. But then we opened the gallery in 2006, and we continued it until 2000 and, I think it was 13-ish when we started MZ Urban Art, because we changed. MonkDogz was very much about giving as many artists the opportunity to have their first show in Chelsea. What we discovered was that it's great to give everybody their first show in Chelsea because, when you're looking for a gallery to support, to represent you in Chelsea, they all want you to have had a show in Chelsea already. Yeah. And, collectors list an arm long. But how do you get that first show if you need to have a show in Chelsea to have a show in Chelsea? So that's what we did for a lot of artists. But then we realized that in order to help support the artist further, it's great to give them that first show, but you start to have to give them, because we can only do that as a group show if we're doing a lot of artists, so we have to give them a solo show. But then that means that you can only show a few artists, because if you're representing an artist, then you have to commit to them long term. It doesn't help anybody just doing a one-off show of an artist and then goodbye. To build an artist's reputation, you have to keep having the solo shows. And so we became, unfortunately, in some ways, more like all the other galleries in Chelsea, which is why we changed the name a little. So we became MZ Urban Art. And unfortunately, Bob passed away in 2016. And I can't tell you the number of artists he impacted. He was one of these people who was really good at finding that next thing that an artist had to do in order to progress further as an artist. He was able to help them grow as artists. I think in terms of impact, he probably had more impact on more artists than anybody else I know. And so I closed the gallery, and I just, I did it for the fun of it. And, I love the art world. I love supporting artists, but the gallery work is really like a hamster wheel. Once you get on it, you keep going, and it's hard to get off. And if you don't have good company, it's a really, really lonely business. So I closed it down. And partly the reason I did that was I stepped in to help Gallery&Studio Magazine. Jeannie McCormack had wanted to make it a nonprofit. And so I helped her set it up as a nonprofit, and we created quite a little bit of a different magazine.
You write a lot for the journal, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing. It wasn't all being altruistic or anything and helping Jeannie out. Over the years, I had written for a gallery and studio, and I love writing. I'm not an artist, but I can write. And so I used to write for them quite often. We get probably about between 1,000 to 2,000 people a month visiting our site. We have a good bunch of people coming in from Europe and Japan. So at the moment, we're working really hard to find funding for the magazine and to try, you get that initial spurt where everyone's really excited about it and they're supportive and they contribute, and then that kind of dies off, and we have to try and do something to keep that enthusiasm going. So we're working hard to broaden our print production.
When you came over into New York, how did you get into the art world?
Now that's a story. My mother loved art. She painted. Art just I realized wasn't for me, and I had no interest in art. But despite that, my mother dragged me to all the universities of the world as we traveled. I still didn't have any interest in art. And, what I knew tended to be, the classical stuff. And, life went along and I did lots of jobs, and I ended up working for British Airways. And I did lots of jobs with British Airways, but the last job I had was I managed the lounges of North America. And that was 28 lounges in North America. And in my portfolio was something I think close to about $10 million of contemporary art that the CEO of British Airways had organized to be put into these lounges. And he was very keen on supporting local artists. So local art would go into, whether it be Seattle, where there was a lot of Native American art, all these, and it wasn't just in the United States, it was all over the world. They would find local artists and they will put them into the lounges. Now, New York and Tokyo being such hubs, we were told that we could have any sort of art in there. And, the bigger and the better, that was what we were looking for. And so we had some amazing art. We had Sol LeWitt walls. We had drawings by Christo. We had Jeff Koons. We had a lot of local artists, but it was all contemporary art. And, what do I know about any of this? So one of the pieces fell off the wall. So I carefully wrapped it up and tucked it underneath my desk and waited the curator from London to come. And she comes and I said, "Oh, Lisa, here we are. This fell off the wall." And she says, "Have you been kicking that under the desk?" And I said, No. I've been really careful. It's wrapped up and, I put it on the side. She says, "You know how much that is?" And I go, "No." And she says, "It's $65,000. It's a Donald Judd." And it was like, and who's Donald Judd?
Yeah.
and I said, it's a metal box. I said, I could go to Home Depot and get this. And that was when she says, "Marina, you have to come with me." And she took me to the Whitney Museum. And that was my introduction into the contemporary art. I knew nothing about art, but I left British Airways, and very shortly afterwards, Bob Hogge, who had been goofing off and working as my bar manager in the Concord Room, who was an artist, but he'd actually been a senior VP in a major corporation, but had decided he had burnt out and wanted a break. He rang me up and he said, "Hey, Marina, do you want to run a gallery?" And now I've had business experience, but no art experience. So Bob had art experience, and his wife was a museum manager of FIT. So between the three of us, we got together and we started a gallery on 27th Street. And, there's a lots in between. So, we did that. We started off with the MonkDogz.net, and we started providing marketing services to cooperatives and nonprofits. And while we were doing all that, it was actually someone in the network, MonkDogz.net, who said, "Where's there a gallery that's reliable, that won't, run off with our paintings and not pay us, and, who will promote us?" And we found it really difficult to recommend anybody. Cooperatives are really great places to start, but it's not for everybody. And so that's actually why we decided in the end to run a gallery. And yeah, it's 365 people in the space of the first 3 years, I think we managed to show. I mean, it was one group show after another, but it was fun times. I can put my hand on my heart and say we had the best openings in Chelsea. We had people jam-packed in that gallery. We were on the 5th floor, and they would line all the way up the stairs, the fire escape, to get up to our floor. We served great food, great wine, and showed great work.
2017, that was the last.
Yeah.
So now you're in fundraising for
Yep.
Gallery&Studio Arts Journal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we're bringing it down. We're finding it's a mouthful, isn't it? G&S Arts Journal, Gallery and Studio. So it's starting to become G&S, which was what the old magazine got called. So, but that's good too.
What are you planning for fundraising in 2021? How are you going to?
Well, a lot of it's going to be about applying for grants, and I deep in trying to get that done. We have a calendar competition, and we're hoping to have a calendar with the winners, 12 winners for each month, and another one on the front cover, and then a few extra ones in the extra spaces of the month. We'll be definitely doing an auction later on this year, and then after that, it's finding other things. Those are what we've got planned at the moment. But we have subscriptions for the magazine, we have advertising, we have media rates. Those are all the things that we look at.
Is your auction going to be on the Upper East Side, or are you?
No, it's online.
Online auction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We the way we do it. One of the great things about Gallery and Studio is that we are really there to help support the lesser known artists. The New York Times and everybody, Art in America and everybody else does a great job doing promotional stuff for Andy Warhol and Basquiat and Van Gogh, but there are not enough media outlets focusing on emerging, unknown, or forgotten artists. And so that's what really drives us. And the other thing that drives us is the fact that we need to give value to artists. One of my biggest complaints, I think, that I've always had is that artists very often get asked to donate to auctions and for the benefit of getting their name on the program, perhaps. But what we do instead is it's a bit of a 50-50. So if we sell a piece of artwork, the artist gets 50%, and we get 50%. They're not just doing it for free or for a byline. And then we're really working hard. Gallery and Studio was a magazine that was about New York originally, and they operated for nearly 20 years. So what we did was we took that basic foundation and tried to grow it so that we're not New York centric anymore. At the moment, most of our writers are in New York, and New York being the center of the art world still. It's hard to get away from that, but we're really trying hard. So we're finding writers who will write in their native tongue, and we can translate them and have an English version. So I think we have 3 articles at the moment which are written in another language, and we have the English version and the native language version, and that's something I'd like to really increase. And we're always looking for new writers from across the globe.
So if we want to refer people to your fundraising efforts, it's just Gallery&Studio.
Yep, and you'll find all our fundraising. Well, anything that we're doing at the moment will show up.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and I hope to meet you in New York in the future.
Yeah, well, what about showing me some of your work?
My work?
Yes.
So I just finished this.
Oh, I like that.
Okay, but that's not normally my style.
Okay.
So
that's so romantic.
I do a lot of that's what I kind of do is Western, and then I do a lot. Western, and I don't have a lot of my works in here right now because I've moved them out. I've got a show coming up on the 19th of May.
Okay.
So I'm doing the wires and signing everything in another room.
Oh, okay.
So
when you have a press release, send it to me with your image, and we'll put you up on the events page.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Thank you. That would be amazing.
Oh, the other thing is also send me a piece. You're not in Art in Quarantine, are you?
No,
you're not. So send me an image and a link to your website, and we will get you, or your social media, and we will get you up on Art in Quarantine as well.
Hey, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and let me tell you, if you're stuck in New York, you don't get to see romantic pictures like that. That your calf and the rider and in the in the in the hills there. Yeah, it's hard to get that sort of
Oh,
artwork.
you,
So
I don't know if you can see. I don't know.
okay.
That's,
Oh, look at that! Oh my gosh, look at you! And Jeannie would love it. Jeannie grew up. Jeannie McCormack, who's the publisher and editor, grew up in Virginia, and she and I lived horses all our youth. So yeah, you already got us with a horse and rider.
thank you.
Yeah, I used to do. I was a child. I used to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. When I wasn't in school, and the only thing I got paid for all of that work, the cleaning, tack, cleaning out the stables and feeding the horses, and the only thing I got for it was a 2-hour ride on a Friday afternoon, and I loved every minute of it. So yeah, that sort of stuff really hits home to our hearts. So how long have you painted all your life? Is it something you've picked up recently?
I started painting in 2014.
Okay.
Just I was living in Portland, Oregon, and it rains a lot.
Yeah,
So I
a
was
bit like
stuck in,
England.
yeah, exactly. I was stuck indoors and just started painting and doodling, and then once you do that, the navigating the art world is really the real trick.
Yeah. So where are you doing this show
So
in May?
what I do, and this is the second time I've done it. I did, I started out in sort of coffee shops and
Mm-hmm.
office spaces.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a gallery, sold a couple pieces to this guy in Tokyo, which was a nightmare.
Oh,
The shipping to Tokyo
yes.
was,
Yeah.
as soon as it hits the American border, it disappears,
Right.
and you have no control over it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was very expensive, but I did make some money, and then like you say, you're going into galleries, and people won't give you the time of day, and you can't. It's people are nice, some people are rude, and this one guy went into his gallery, and I said, "Well, let me rent like a wall?"
Mm-hmm.
He says, "No, you can't do that." Well, why? And he said, "Well, because you're the competition." And I was like,
Well, he was true. I kind of like that. He's frank.
So I found a space and I rented it and just threw my own exhibition and charged a bunch of artists rent, and then did all the promotion and marketing.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and so that's what I do now. But I do it in boutique hotels,
How fabulous.
in the conference rooms of boutique
Right.
hotels, and then I use the hotel's catering. So
Do you have to pay the hotels to do that?
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's so I think it's, well, I know it's $600 for the room.
Right.
And I do it for one night.
Right.
And then I am serving champagne from 1 to 7. I'm taking out 2 ads in the newspaper.
Right.
One in the paid weekly and then one in the daily for the week for 6 days.
Wow, that's quite some expense.
Yeah, but if you don't do it, then the first time I did it, I did it on the cheap. And I had a big turnout and sold 7 paintings, but now that I've sold some paintings and I've got the money, then you have to kind of amp it up, don't you?
Wow. I let me tell you, I admire you doing that. That's really impressive. It's not easy, and you've taken on that task for all those artists who are just paying you a little bit of money, and then you're doing everything else. So yeah, that's impressive.
This one is a solo show.
Right.
It's just for me.
Good. I'm glad. There is, group shows are great. I heartily encourage everybody to do group shows. But then, you're right. Once you step, you have to step it up a bit, and you get more and more credibility doing solo shows. And a lot of artists struggle with that sales side, the business end of selling artwork. And you're embracing it and doing the work. Yeah, good on you. Well done.
Thank you.
Oh, no, that's impressive. Like, I mean, just to give you a feel for it, in Chelsea, the last place we had was a ground floor gallery on 27th Street. And we were probably paying, in terms of expenses, before we paid ourselves, we were talking between $10,000 and $12,000 a month. So if you're doing a 50-50 with your artists, that means that you've got to be selling $20,000 to $24,000 worth of paintings every month. And, it's a tall order, even in Chelsea. So, I understand how difficult it is, and, the expenses you incur, and, all that promoting that you're doing. Yeah, it's tough stuff. One of the most difficult things that artists have is trying to price their work. And it's the same as everything else. You look around at everybody else and seeing what they're selling at in galleries, and you try and see where you are in terms of your career. You look at the size of the canvas, but then you really have to look at what people are paying to buy paintings. And they might pay millions of dollars for a Basquiat, but are they going to pay even a quarter of that for your painting? You really do have to. It's a lot of artists think I've been doing this. I mean, Bob always used to say, someone says, how long did it take you to paint that painting, for instance? And he'd say 57 years. Because that's how it's long, to get to that. It took him 57 years. And I said, yeah, but you can't pay, but price a painting based on how many years you've done, but you need to, and you want to, in terms of the value of the work you have. But when you're selling, it's with any other product. So my view has always been, for most artists, is if you're prepared to let them go, it's better that you sell it and more people have your work and know who you are than it is to raise your price. I mean, you can always raise your price. It's really hard to bring it back down once someone's paid. So, my view is, if you enjoy the the activity of creating these, then, paint as many as you can and sell as many as you can. And if it's a little bit less, then, until you really pick up a market and a reputation, it's okay that, it's not in the tens of thousands. But, if you keep at it and, you find your niche, you can have it. I mean, the classic example is John Mark Calvert, who is probably my biggest artist. And he came into our gallery one day and he was selling his work at about $1,000. And he's now selling it in the tens of thousands. So, and, but that took, quite a long time to get there. We had the dip because he came in at 2006 and we had, 2008 happened and we had like $250,000 in sales ready to go out the door, and the market collapsed and all the sales collapsed too. And so that was a rough year. And then so we had to drop his prices, which is never good and never easy. But we managed to get it up, and he's still selling in the tens. French artist, lived in Nicaragua. He has an amazing life story. They've made a documentary film about his life. I'm in the process of writing his life story for him. We've done shows for him. He's showing all over Europe at the moment. And he's got a huge story. He does great art, and he's starting to pick up traction. But he's very much an artist within himself. So that's one of the difficult things, is that we at MZ and at MonkDogz, we worked with with artists in the primary market. So we just deal with artists. We don't do the secondary market. So these are people who aren't famous yet. I mean, once they become famous, they get snapped up by the big boys. But I know some artists who have, people don't know them, but there's so many great artists out there. I mean, you work really hard at your craft, and you're doing these interviews, but there, and everybody only wants to talk about Francis Bacon and Jeff Koons and Andy Warhol and Basquiat, and they're all dead, I suppose, except for Jeff Koons. He's still alive, but everybody else is dead, and they're still getting excited about these artists. There's so many great artists who are out there that everybody needs to know about. So yeah, I've got a lot on my plate, because there are too many more artists I need to get out there and tell people to come and have a look at and to buy.
And to buy. So we can keep.
Well, that's the thing. If you buy a painting from an artist, especially a living artist, you become part of their story. You become part of their narrative. As a collector, you get to be part of their stories. You help the story of that artist, that narrative of that artist continue. And you as a collector, get to tell everybody else, all your friends and family, about, this wonderful artist that you bought and the great painting that you, oh, sorry, we've got a visitor. You get to be part of that story. And how exciting is that? There are not many other things that you can buy, and then you can be a part of it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, Melchor. You have me going on. Any time you've got, I can fill it.
You just you give me profound ideas and then stop talking.
Well, we can continue. And I always say to collectors too, is that you need, because you're part of this narrative, you need to promote it too. So whether it's on social media, which you don't have to do depending on who the type of people are, but you need to tell this to your friends and your family, and tell them about this great artist that you like, because it's we're in this together. I really think that it is about cooperation.
That's what you were saying about Bob Hogge and stuff, when you were working with him, and it was like a ride.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it is, and it's about reaching out, and as you did. I mean, I think you're doing a wonderful job, trying to find those blogs that are interested to widen your reach in terms of your audience.
Oh, thank you. You get so isolated, and it's like, well, what's everybody else doing?
Yeah. Just so you know, in New York, everybody sits in their little neighborhoods. They go out in the areas that they lived in and the areas where they worked, and they wouldn't go anywhere else. That's in New York, and I don't know how big New York is. It's pretty small, Manhattan, and people are so colloquial, and they like their own neighborhoods, and they don't go anywhere else. So you're right. This was a great opportunity to reach the world, really. And in terms of galleries, people could do studio visits on Zoom, and people who wouldn't normally come to New York were able to come in and see what was going on here. And for us in New York, it gave us the opportunity to see a little bit further than the Hudson River and the East River. It's a good thing.
Well, thank you. Well, I love New York, and hopefully when everything opens up, maybe we'll be able to grab a coffee or something.
I would welcome that. But Melchor, keep in touch. As I say, give me, when you have your press release, send it to me. We'll get it up on our social media. We're happy to help promote you. Get me a piece of one painting, and your address to put into quarantine, and we'll get that up straight away.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
It was lovely.
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi guys, I hope you liked this video. If you guys like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and like.